Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone. This is me, Jonathan Alexander, and I'm here to host my show, Life After Happiness. Today we have astrologer Virginia Bell. Are you there, ma'am?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Now,
Hi.
I've been looking through your book, and as I understand it, and I also have my co-host Kelly there as well. Are you there, Kelly?
Yeah, hi. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I was looking through the forward of your book, and it seems like what you have is you believe that there are various cycles that everybody goes through in their life. Now,
exactly.
Can you kind of explain a little bit about what those cycles are, or generational cycles?
Yeah, the generational cycles, they are the cycles that we all share at the same age. You know, like there's a Saturn return at 29, midlife, which peaks at the early 40s, a Chiron return at 50, second Saturn return 58. There's a cycle in the 60s, and then again in 84, at age 84. Now, here's the thing about these cycles. Even though we share them at the same age, they are not superficial. You know, imagine a bar mitzvah or a sweet 16. Those we share at the same age, but they are very profound. These are life-changing crossroads. They're initiations. So these cycles, I call them the power years. And because they're shared by many people, they're deeply rooted in our culture. And so even though we have them at the same age, we all have a different experience. And the ritual marks our progress from one stage to another. And so there are about, 7 cycles that we all share. Now, there's a lot of other things going on in our life in between. Those are personal aspects that we have in astrology. But these cycles are real turning points.
Now, I'm currently 46.
Mm-hmm.
What cycle am I in right now?
Okay, so the first cycle is the Saturn return at 29, okay? And Saturn is that planet of reality, responsibility, hard work. It's a planet that asks us to do gladly what we don't want to do, So at 29, basically, if we're doing it right, we make a commitment, we work hard, and we grow in the process.
I've heard it called the Dr. Phil of planet.
Say it again?
The Dr. Phil of planet.
Yes, exactly. Get real. That's Saturn. It's like our sober companion, And so, if you look at anyone's life around, 29, people tend to, we could have the biggest career in the world, but on some level we're not quite an adult. We could be saving lives in the emergency room, but maybe at our Saturn return we decide to take on a relationship, or we start a family, or we go back to school. Something shifts at the Saturn return. We get sober, we grow up. And our 30s are our Saturn years. We're building something, you see. Then getting to the midlife, Jonathan, midlife begins in the late 30s, and midlife is not for sissies, okay, because it involves, as Marianne Williamson said in a lecture, nervous breakdowns are highly underrated, okay? It's not terrible, but it's not just one planet. Midlife, which takes from the late 30s to it peaks in the early 40s, but it goes on to about 44, 45, and it involves the planet Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn. And so around the end of our 30s, maybe we're successful in life. We have some fame, or we have some stability, we've grown, and then something happens. It either happens from the inside. Maybe there's a voice that says, is this all there is? Or maybe it comes from the outside in the form of a crisis or a loss. Maybe there's, a relationship breaks up, or we lose our job, or we have an illness. Something happens that forces us to look deeply at our life. We haven't done anything wrong. Life is supposed to change. We outgrow ourselves. So the first stage of midlife is when the planet Pluto, and the god in mythology of birth, death, and transformation, a heavy dude, Pluto makes an aspect to itself. And an old life is over, a new one is about to begin. It forces us to look deeply at what frightens us. Oftentimes there is a crisis, not always. It depends what we're doing. For instance, Robert Downey Jr., who was, he's a great actor, in his 30s, but he also had a great drug problem. But at his Saturn, at the first stage of midlife, at the Pluto square Pluto, 3738, he finally got help. He had help before, but it didn't stick. There's something there. If we're doing it right at that stage, we're able to look deeply and honestly at our own wounds, our shadow, our dark side, and do some healing. That is the first stage when Pluto makes a square to itself. At the same time, the planet Neptune, the planet of the invisible and the unseen that rules all those things that we can't see with the naked eye, like imagination, inspiration, music, spirituality. We're often longing at the same time, for some more meaning in life. Neptune is all about meaning, and it's a spiritual crisis, so it can be a very confusing time. See, if we're doing it right at the Pluto stage in our late 30s, then we're, doing some, whether it's therapy or shamanic work or facing our wounds. At the Neptune, at the same time, we're looking for more meaning in our life. We need to, there's a wonderful book by, what's his name? I can't think of it now. He wrote The Art of Stillness, The Adventures of Going Nowhere. We need downtime, soul time. We're having a spiritual crisis at that time. The peak of the midlife is the early 40s, and that is when the planet Uranus, change at all cost Uranus, makes an opposition to itself around 42 years old. That is expect the unexpected. Uranus, an outer planet like Neptune and Pluto, that Uranus was discovered in 1781 around the time of the American and French Revolution. So it's about freedom, individuation, restlessness. We feel like we're living in Starbucks, mainlining, espressos. And what happens at that time in our early 40s, we get very restless. Whatever we've left on the back burner begins to call us. Now, maybe you've noticed that a lot of women around their early 40s have a child for the first time. It's like, wait a minute, I have to do this, right?
That's interesting that you bring that up. Kelly, are you there?
Yeah, I was smiling at that one.
Why? Has that happened to you, Kelly?
Well, I've never been pregnant before, and unfortunately I lost the baby at 7 weeks. But
I hope I didn't bring up anything bad, Kelly. I'm sorry. But
thank you. No, it's fine. I mean, it was horrible at the time. It was earlier this year, but I'm doing a lot better, and I just feel like my body at the age of 43 was going, what is this? We've never experienced this before. And so that, and I'm thinking next time around, if we do that, then my body's going to be like, hey, I recognize this. This is okay.
Are you going to have to try to have another child, or when you say the next time round, you mean next lifetime or this life?
Yeah, we'd like to be married first.
Okay.
That's why I say, but yeah,
I don't think it's too late. It happens. Sometimes people have, children a little bit later. I mean, it's a different world now. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And people are aging differently. So, but that at that time, it's very typical for women to want to have a kid. Many celebrities have that for a first time. I think it was Halle Berry and Selma Hayek. But it's it's a big change. It's not changing who we are. It's becoming who we are. I mean, that's when Bill W. got sober and he started AA. Rosa Parks, that's when she refused to get up on that bus in Montgomery, Alabama, and became the face of civil rights. Ellen DeGeneres came out as a lesbian publicly. So there's a lot that happens. That's when Carl Jung broke with Freud. Georgia O'Keeffe discovered New Mexico. So at the Uranus, which is the peak of midlife, whatever we put on the back burner begins to call us, and we can't ignore it. Ted Turner, who was working very hard at that time, he took a year off, and he sailed around the world in a boat named Freedom. What a great metaphor, you know? But so if we're doing it right, we go out on a limb for something we really, really want, and we're rejuvenated in the process. The comic version, which we see a lot, is that, you know, the guy that got married right out of high school and had 3 kids and hits midlife, and maybe he says, I mean, maybe he's happily married, but maybe some men might say, you know, I never even played the field, and he, you know, leaves the family and, you know, gets a motorcycle and a leisure suit or something. That's the cartoon version, where the key is not running away from something, but running towards it. That, you know, and the stakes are high at midlife, because how we navigate this period, it determines the second half of life. So if we get it wrong, we're acting out like an old adolescent fantasy. If we get it right, we go out on the limb for something we really want, and we're rejuvenated. And again, it's not changing who we are, it's becoming who we are. You know, years ago, and I'm dating myself, I used to do a lot of self-help workshops, and one of them was Earhart Seminar Training, that was quite famous at the time, and the slogan was, I used to be different, now I'm the same. So that's, in a sense, midlife, you know. It's letting go of what's not working, having the freedom. If we've done our Saturn work in our 30s, we have some skills. We have a foundation under us. And so we're not making those crazy choices, you know, like Thelma and Louise going over that cliff or something. And the midlife, and there's also a Saturn opposition around 44, 45. That may be what you're having right now, Jonathan. That is when Saturn, that planet of reality, has made half a turn, opposition. That's when whatever we've been doing, if we've been doing our midlife and taking some positive risks, that's when it's anchored in. Like, I don't know when you started your show. How many years ago? Do you remember?
I mean, if you mean really getting it going, I'll tell you this much. We just interviewed, I think it was Deborah Silverman, I think that was her name, yesterday. And you know, she sort of looked at my chart, and basically what she told me was, she said, well, you know, obviously you're a Gemini, you're going to do this. You know, I've had lots of people tell me this, and you know, as soon as I had one psychic, I told Karen Page, I said, you know, well, my birthday is the 28th of May. She goes, oh, you little Gemini, you. No wonder you're in radio. And right. It is true. It's something to it. But, you know, also, it's sort of funny because I've also been told that I relate really well to Sagittariuses. Hint, hint, Kelly.
Kelly, you're a Sagittarius? That's great.
Yeah, December 4. Thank you. I'll be 44 then.
And I think that what it is that she said, I think I've been told that I relate well to them because I can't stand a liar. That's what one of the psychics.
You can't stand what, Jonathan?
A liar.
Oh, okay.
You know, because Sagittarius, I relate really well to them. And that's what I've been told. So
interesting.
I'm pretty darn open. So.
These years where Saturn is opposite, either you anchor in, you kind of lock in what you're doing, can be a time of success. And for some people, maybe they made some wrong turns, then you kind of go back to the drawing board. That's what Saturn is. You do some more work. You fine-tune. You refine everything. You know. But these 40s are our power years. You know, not that the 50s aren't. The 50s, in fact, are incredible because I think, because there's no other time in our life where we have, on one side, we have some experience, some wisdom, hopefully, some miles on the meter, but on the other hand, we have a lot of time left. So the 60s are great as well. But the 40s are important because, we build something in our Saturn return in our 30s. And in our 40s, we have the skills, maybe some experience, technique, and we get that feeling, okay, what do I really want to do? Now, a lot of people don't change, but for many of us, we have the skills and we want to apply it to something else. But for most people, midlife is the name of the game is change, not changing who we are, but becoming who we are and taking the risk. That's what Uranus is about. It's that freedom. What do I really want to do, Joseph Campbell said, midlife is when you reach the top of the ladder and find it was against the wrong wall. So, sometimes we have to change the wall that our ladder is up against, But midlife is a very exciting time. It can be, crazy because of we're having, we have, Pluto, we have Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn, but we have to make room for everything. Like Pema Chodron, the wonderful American Buddhist nun, she says, the healing comes from making room for everything, the sadness, the sweetness, the grief, the gladness. And at midlife, we have to make room, for the Pluto doing, the deep work, looking within, for Neptune and for Uranus.
I have a question, because I think I asked you this over the phone. I did tell you my grandmother died at 107, right?
Oh, wow, that's fabulous. Yes,
now,
you did say.
What stage would you say she's at?
Well, I would say that's a stage of old age. I don't know, Jonathan, what that, let's see, at 107, I would have to figure that out. In that we have at 84. At 84, we have a Uranus return. So let's see, 107. Let's see, we have in our 90s we have another Saturn return. I don't know what we have in 107. I mean, there would be cycles. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to look that up on the ephemeris of the computer. But I would say that forget the cycles. She's, you know what I mean? She's a, strong woman.
Well, she
has
was
good
strong.
genes.
She was strong. When she was 100 years old, my sister, my sister Cassie would take her to church, and everybody would ask, "How old are you?" And Cassie would go, "She's 100." And then my grandmother would say, only 100, only. She really did. She had an unusual. It was like one of those things. It was like my entire side, the family on my father's side, they had incredible longevity. All three of my grandmother's sisters lived to be over 100.
Wow.
Her sister was 105, or her sister. It's just in the genes, It's just
sometimes it's in the genes. You're absolutely right, and it could be many things. Absolutely. Sometimes. It has to do with one's health, one's habits, but sometimes, listen, some of the people who live to be 100 and more, they don't watch their diet, maybe they have a good attitude, or it's a combination.
Yeah, that is one thing I will say about my grandmother. She was an extremely, the only thing that kind of made my grandparents both kind of sad was, when I was when I was a kid, my grandparents, they used to love picking me up at school and taking me. Dad would take me. My grandfather would take me to go get ice cream and he would do this, you love doing that. And also, he used to take us to football games because my grandfather, he taught math at a college.
Oh,
So
nice.
He got older, and they started having accidents, and
Yeah.
it was, I think that, my uncle started realizing that maybe it wasn't a good idea for him to drive the grandkids around anymore.
Yeah.
So they kind of very nicely told him, they said, listen, if you ever want to go somewhere, we'll help you get there, but we don't want you driving our children around anymore.
Oh.
And that's what my uncle said, and I didn't realize that it was how sad it really made them feel, because it made them feel like they weren't really.
Sure, that was a big contribution, and also they probably, they love to their grandkids.
Well, also another thing. This is a true story. I was taking a history class, and a lot of people would think, well, you chose this obviously, but no, that's not why I chose it. I chose it because my family is Cuban. And my father came from Cuba, my grandfather came from Cuba. So when it came time to write the history paper, I decided to write my history paper on Fidel Castro.
Oh,
okay?
Interesting.
And so I approached and I said, Dad, can you talk to Ethel? Which, by the way, just to let you know a little tidbit, I called my grandfather Ethel and my grandmother Ita.
Mm-hmm.
That is the Cuban term of endearment for grandparents.
Oh.
So if I say that and you're kind of confused by that, I wanted to kind of explain to you what that was. Okay. So I said to Dad, Dad, can you ask Ethel if he has any books on Fidel Castro? And so we go to see him, and he and I didn't write the paper on Fidel Castro because it was the easy choice because my family was Cuban. I actually wanted my grandfather to feel like he was involved in my education.
Yeah, that was lovely. What a beautiful thing, Jonathan, to include him.
So he sat down and he kind of told me a little bit about Cuba, and he was like, yes, and he told me a story about how Fidel Castro spent 4 hours in confessional at a church. And I heard that, and I'm like, okay, exactly what do you say? I mean, for 4 hours in confessional, and
wow.
The priest, what do you say to the guy? And but it's like, I guess the thing is that there's all these cycles. So what you're saying is I'm going through the midlife cycle, right?
Yeah, you are in midlife. Yep. And
okay.
So, but you're before, and so you're right. You're between midlife and the Chiron return at 50. 49 to 51 is the Chiron return.
Okay.
And Chiron in mythology, in astrology, the planets are named after the gods, and Chiron was a centaur, half man, half horse. He was abandoned by both parents, and he raised himself in a cave, and he was mentored by Apollo, who taught him the healing arts, medicine, homeopathy, herbology, astrology, astronomy, and he became the tutor, mentor to the sons of the great men and gods. He taught them to be the heroes that they were meant to be. At our Chiron return, around between 49 and 51, we have an opportunity to become the heroes in our own life. And Chiron was wounded. He was abandoned by both parents, and he, again, half man, half horse. He was wounded, and he's called the wounded healer. At our Chiron return, our late 40s, early 50s, it takes us back to anything that has not been healed. And it puts us in touch with those things. In fact, it's probably the most powerful time to become fully conscious of our own wound. And it is a time, it's not so much about therapy, but it's more about healing. And healing even parental wounds, ancestral wounds. I believe there's certain things that we just can't deal with until we're 50. We don't have the wisdom, we don't have the miles on the meter, so to speak. At our Chiron return, we're usually ready to deal with many things that we couldn't deal with before. And at our Chiron return, we often change our story. All of these cycles are crossroads. And so at our Chiron return, many times people change their stories. That's Julia Child. That's when she got her book published finally, And oftentimes it's interesting because people come into our life. A lot of synchronistic things happen leading up in our late 40s and at our Chiron return. People come into our life like mentors come into our life that are a catalyst for change. That happened to me. I had an astrology reading with Stephen Forrest, and it changed my life. I was in the restaurant business. My restaurant was up in my second restaurant. It was too seasonal. And I was losing a ton of money, and it was up in the Berkshires in Massachusetts. I had a restaurant in New York, and then I opened this one up in Massachusetts, and I was losing all this money. And this woman that I met up there, she and her husband lived in New York City, but they drive back and forth because they had a weekend home. And sometimes I would drive back with them. And one night, this woman was reading from a book by Stephen Forrest, The Inner Sky. And I loved astrology. I had an astrologer at my restaurant in the city. He would eat and sign, and myself and some of the staff would get readings. So I loved astrology, but I didn't know it was so deep and rich and juicy and psychological. And she was reading from this book, and I thought, oh, my God, I have to get that book. She said, well, it's out of print. I said, well, can I borrow yours? And she lent me her book. She had his number in the back of the book. And I called for a reading and another reading. My life was falling apart. I was like in my late 40s. I was losing everything, But one of my favorite quotes is, how far high failure overleaps the bounds of low success. So even though that second restaurant, I lost so much money, but it was a crossroads. It put me in a whole different direction. I changed my story. I closed the one up in Massachusetts. I couldn't give it away, and it was gorgeous. I mean, my God, red oak floors and wainscoting, the whole thing. Anyway, and then my first one in the city was one of the first natural foods restaurants in New York. It was doing well, but I didn't have the money to pay. Now I lost so much money for new air conditioning and whatnot. And it was the early 90s, so, things in the village, the AIDS crisis, a lot of things were changing in the village. So I decided to sell my restaurant. I was at my Chiron return. And so often at the Chiron return, a failure can be a catalyst for change. An illness can be a catalyst for change. A mentor can be a catalyst for change, a crisis. And so what was a crisis was actually one of the best things that ever happened to me. And it took me a while. I didn't immediately become an astrologer, but during that period when I, was going back and forth like a package from New York and to the Berkshires to run, my sister was up in the Berkshires, but she ended up deciding she didn't want to be in the restaurant business, so I was going back and forth. And the only thing that gave me a little relief was reading about astrology, and it was the one thing that it wasn't contaminated by all my problems and my crisis. So I just kind of dove into it, and I knew about astrology, but I did not know about these great writers. I discovered wonderful, writers, and then listening to Stephen's readings on the train going up to the Berkshires. So my life began to go in another direction, and that happens at our Chiron return. Change happens. Jackie Kennedy She came back after Onassis died, and her social secretary, who had been her social secretary in the White House, said, you need a job. And she said, me, a job? She said, yes, you need something to do, and you love books. Why don't you call that publisher and become an editor? And that's what she did. And she became an editor first, I forget the publishing, but later at Doubleday, and she edited over 100 books, Jackie Kennedy. That was a huge life change, you see. So oftentimes some catalyst, whether it's an illness or, a crisis, can be a catalyst for change. And, in the Chinese language, the word crisis is made up of two figures, danger and opportunity. So I always look at that, as, there's an opportunity comes with every crisis. It's not, we're not just, the planets are not beating the, crap out of us. They're not up there trying to destroy us. They're trying to wake us up. So at our Chiron return, it's a wonderful time to do some healing, forgiving. That's another big thing that happens as well.
Now I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, you're going to be 44.
Yeah, I'm going to be 44 on December 4th.
Okay. So what cycle is she in?
Well, she is at her midlife basically.
Okay.
And she's having the Saturn opposite Saturn. This is the you've had your, let's see, I'd have to look in the ephemeris, but you may still be having Uranus opposite Uranus, which again is a major change. The thing is with Uranus, by the way, you feel totally restless. So you really need to ground yourself. During that time, change happens, and so it's important to, yes, to take some risks, even small risks, but also to, ground yourself, because it's a very dynamic time at the peak of midlife there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions for Virginia about that to Kelly?
So you're a Sagittarius, and and so you're at midlife. Well, Sagittarius, is the gypsy, the philosopher. You may not know the meaning of life, but life has a meaning, and you're on a quest to find it. You're most alive when you're learning, like a Gemini also. Very, both of those. Gemini is the communicator. Gemini is the media person. It's the teacher. It rules early education, communication, writing. Sagittarius rules higher education, rules travels of the mind. So, yeah, that's a great sign. You're on a quest. You may not know the meaning of life, but life has a meaning. And
Geminis and Sagittarius work good together in radio.
Yeah, because they're both signs of communication. Mm-hmm.
Oh, great! Yeah,
yeah.
Thank you.
Different kinds of communication. The Gemini can be the reporter. Gemini can be the journalist, the teacher. Sagittarius can be sometimes more. They see the bigger picture, the philosopher, so to speak.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So is there something, Kelly, is there something that you're longing to do, that is pulling at you, that you want to create, that you haven't done before? Maybe it's this working with Jonathan. I don't know if this is a new thing. Writing.
Yeah, this is new, in writing.
Oh, well, see, that's what you've got to follow. Follow your heart. Follow your heart. Ask yourself every day. I heard this, Elizabeth Gilbert, one of my favorite writers. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love and a number of other books. But she said once on Oprah, ask yourself every day, what do I really, really, really want? Those are the breadcrumbs that will lead you to your path, really.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and go with, go with the writing. Follow the writing. Well,
that's always been on the back burner. It's
this is back burner time, right?
Yeah. I started doing an outline on one of them, and I've been writing notes, how to start and what. I've got like 3 different things in the, in the pan right now, ready to write, and it has to do with healing, and it has to do with animals, and it has to do with
wonderful
different things like that. I've traveled the world, but not everywhere in the world. But I'm with my fiance who loves to travel, and he's a Sagittarius. But his birthday,
2 Sages.
Yeah.
Get a backpack.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh yeah.
Exactly. It's like we're ready to go, and break out some travel, gear, and let's do this. And so, his birthday is December 10th of 77.
Okay. Excellent. So how old is he? I have to do the math. I have to write that down.
He'll be 41 in December on the 10th.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So, yeah. So he's like really hitting midlife, right? He's getting into the Uranus now. So he's restless, looking for something. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And just like a lot of my friends at midlife, he went through a divorce, and not afterwards. But there's still it's trying to come together as a family, and there's his daughter involved, and she's 10, and she'll be 11 January 31st, and it's just making a harmonious home, and meanwhile we're still living in our own separate houses, and we're trying to figure things out that way. But this is the time for change. Change is the name of the game at midlife. So you haven't done anything wrong. This is the time for it. It doesn't mean it's sometimes easy or tidy. Life is messy. I had a therapist who once said, all the good things in life are messy. Birth, sex, eating lobster, cooking. It's all messy, but in a good way. Yeah.
And change can be messy as well. So, follow your heart. The great Rumi quote, let yourself be silently drawn to those things you truly love. Let that pull you towards your, let your passion, be the engine there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you see me I have a bunch of exotic animals that I rescued, and I'm trying to make a business out of it, but it's almost like every time I take a step forward, there's roadblocks like, I want to keep it above board, but there's local ordinances here. There's, this thing there, and I just don't know if maybe I should just keep them to myself and write about them and avoid all that legality, or try to pursue it. And, it's more of a physical thing than obviously the writing would be, and the writing to me is spiritual as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm not psychic, but you can call me or email me with your chart, and I'm happy to look at the chart and tell you what I see. I think, though, if you're wanting to travel, it'd be hard to have the animals, no?
Yeah, I do have people that look after them while I'm gone, but it is something. Yeah, sometimes I was traveling with them to take them to, schools or events.
Oh, I see.
But, I was doing a lot further travel just myself,
Right,
but,
exactly.
Yeah.
But this is the time. Midlife is the time that, again, it's whatever we haven't done yet that begins to call us, and it's important to listen. Not the crazy schemes, but the real deep, passion, that things that you love. That's what you have to follow at midlife, Oh,
that makes sense, because I've been pushing my boundaries a little bit and getting out of my comfort zone for the past 5 years.
That's exactly what you need to do. Absolutely. That is the key, getting out of your comfort zone.
Not trying to jump in or interrupt, but I was just going to tell you, like, when she first started doing the show, she was nervous. She was like, she didn't think she'd like it as much as she did. Isn't that right, Kelly?
Yeah, because I felt kind of like awkward and, I don't like my voice, or what if I don't have anything to say, or if people don't like me, or, the probably the common typical stuff that people say. Maybe I'm not good enough, whatever.
Well, you know what? You'd be surprised how many famous actors, before they go on stage, throw up in the wings, And
I saw to do that before. Oh, wow. Before I did stuff with musical instruments, I used to be sick in the bathroom or before a soccer game or whatever.
Well, there are a lot of famous people who do that, too. And I saw Paul McCartney on the CBS profile, it was about 2 Sundays ago, and the interviewer said, well, you don't have anything to be nervous about or insecure. He said, are you kidding? I'm always nervous. I'm always worried. People won't like me. I won't do it right. We all have it. We don't. Well, the thing is, we compare our insides to other people's Botoxed outsides. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
But people feel the same, and especially people who are well known. There's more pressure on them, so that's natural.
Oh, yeah.
You have to do it anyway. Another one of my favorite quotes, I love quotes, is Georgia O'Keeffe, the great artist, who said, "I have been terrified every moment of my life, but it never stopped me from doing anything I really wanted to do." And she's probably the most famous woman artist in the world. So there you go. You have your fear, you do it anyway, and you move forward. That's life, And
excellent.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
So,
I'm gonna have to, make sure I've got your contact.
Yeah, you'll get. Jonathan
yeah.
has it. Yeah.
I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll give
thank
it
you.
you. But I mean, the thing is that Kelly, I mean, it's sort of interesting because, Kelly makes the show a lot more fun.
Well, that's
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You have great energy.
And I still get a kick out of the first time I had her on the show as a co-host, and I introduced her as a co-host. And then later on, she calls me up and she goes, I noticed you introduced me as a co-host.
I was doing my little silent happy dance, but trying not to act like a dork, while we're on air.
Well, yeah, apparently she really wanted to do some shows with you, but she didn't want to come out and say it. Is that right, Kelly?
Yeah, because I don't, normally I don't like to draw attention to myself, and I didn't know if I'd be any good at it, and I thought, well, why would you want to have me on your show?
Well, that's funny that you said. I mean, because I think when as soon as you and Tim did my chakras, I thought I gotta broadcast this.
Yeah,
because
I remember you saying something.
This is the thing. I mean, I'm going to tell you this, Virginia. When they did my chakras, Tim, the guy that did the chakras with them, it was like, I don't know. You obviously remember the movie The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when Tim, the guy she was with, did my chakras, it was like Max von Sydow in The Exorcist.
Oh, wow.
You know how the priest was coughing and wheezing through the whole time?
Right.
And it looked like it was going to be too much for him. Well, we actually, it was so much that I nicknamed him Max von Sydow, is what I nicknamed him. And actually, I thought, we even joked about this, how funny it would be if we could somehow get Linda Blair on the show and then have them do her chakras, because, I mean,
wow.
It's like the movie. It's like the movie. I mean, he did my chakras. He had 4 small seizures after he did my chakras. And I'm thinking, this is like Max von Sydow, The Exorcist.
Wow.
Yeah, he also had his head spin. I mean, he didn't do that, but it was like, wow, are you okay? Everybody I've told about these famous chakra cleansing duo has wanted a taste of it. I mean, they're like, can I do it too?
Yeah,
so
why not?
That's when I brought the idea of doing shows, and
That's great. Wow. Excellent.
Yeah, it's been definitely an experience, because Tim is who I learned this from, and then it was kind of like it's working on things that intuitively I know how to do, but and I can explain the process, but it doesn't mean that everybody can do it, even though everybody's got the capacity to do it. Not everybody's in touch with that. So, yeah.
Now, I don't want to put down astrology, but I'll tell you this. I've tried it myself. I just couldn't do it. But the thing was, numerology was more my thing.
Right.
I mean, it was just amazing. It was like, oh wow. But
usually, if you do oftentimes if you give someone a reading and you do astrology reading and do the numerology, they tend to be pretty aligned. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
it's just a different technique. It's a different. One's a violin and the other's a piano, but you can play the same music.
But what I loved I was doing numerology readings for people in college without writing anything down. It seemed like so much more interesting. Numerology was like psychic Scrabble. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I love numerology. I love it, and I used to do it when I was before I did astrology. Not professionally. Although I knew a lot of, in the 60s, I used to hang out with a lot of Arab royalty, and they all loved, do the numbers of this one, do the numbers of that one. I was pretty young at the time, I didn't really quite know what I was doing, but they seemed to like it, so. But, it really is fascinating, and even just to know what year you're in, what numerologically what year you're in is also good to know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like let's see, like for example, Kelly. Let's see here, 2018.
Yeah, I'm at the end of a 9-year cycle.
Well, we're in a 2-year, because 8 and 1 are 9, 10, 11. Well, it could be an 11-year, which is a master vibration.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 years is usually more about relationship, where first year you're beginning something new. You're in the 2018 again is for the whole world is an 11 year. But then we have our individual number when you put your birth month and day with 11. You see,
right?
Or 2
in the personal month. In the personal days, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Okay. Yeah.
And I also know that the first name is your talent. So, like the name Kelly is your talent, and then
interesting.
Yeah. It was. I've learned all that from reading my books. It's just.
Well, yeah, numerology is also very ancient and. Really powerful.
Yeah, I like that and astrology, and I want to learn more about both.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good paths are connected to other good paths, I believe. Anyway.
I mean,
that makes sense.
Pardon?
Well, what I was going to say is that when I was doing numerology readings in college, and then one day these guys that I knew that I'd done readings for walked right past me, and they went, "Oh, look, there's Nostradamus."
Who?
Oh.
Ever since then, that's been my chat nickname, and I liked it because it was one, it was a cute name, and 2, there was nothing vulgar about it, so it didn't turn women off.
Ah.
I mean, it wasn't anything, and the only thing I've heard that's negative about it, though, is that it's kind of a gloomy name. I mean, if people associate it to, oh, great, we're going to have a wonderful day. Here's Nostradamus. Oh, God,
That's great. Well, just to kind of pull things together here, after the Chiron return in your early like between 49 and 51, there's a second Saturn return. See, okay. Saturn, we had the first Saturn return at 29. 29 years later, there's a second Saturn return at 58. And our first Saturn return, we become the adult. The second Saturn return, we become the elder. But I don't mean older. Anyone can be an older. Not everybody can be an elder. An elder is someone who has some wisdom, some experience, some self-knowledge. And so at a 58, we enter the we enter the beginning of being an elder. We're at that, we're just like a baby elder in a way. We're a rookie elder, a freshman, and so just like in the first Saturn return, we need a purpose or a goal. And the second Saturn return, also, we need to have a purpose that will define us in our later years, something that's aligned with who we are now, not who we were. So a good thing to ask at your second Saturn return is, what is the task that is worthy for the rest of my life? We need a purpose. And hopefully it's less about ego. In our 20s, we're more ego, outer-oriented. We're trying to get ahead, carve an identity. We're young. At our second Saturn return, it's more about finding a purpose, an inner purpose. Doesn't mean we can't be famous or successful, but it has to be something that it's not orchestrated by the ego. It's more coming from a soul place. For instance, Frank McCourt, who won the Pulitzer Prize for Angela's Ashes, that book, he, at 58, his third wife said to him, or second wife, I don't know, she said, "Frank, get out of the bars. Stop telling your stories to your cronies. Write them down." He was a teacher here in New York City, and so he began writing Angela's Ashes. He didn't get that book published till he was 64. Now that's not a book he could have written as a young person, because it was a very sad book, So sometimes the things that we do later in life just take more time. They take more experience. Cezanne didn't have his first one-man show until his late 50s. Louise Hay, she started Hay House at that age. So in our second Saturn return, Hay House, the publishing company. Do you know who Louise? You must probably know who Louise Hay is. But she had written her book at 52 at her Chiron return, right? Where I said that sometimes an illness can be a catalyst for change. She got cancer, and she sold everything here in New York. And she got on a train. She took her clothes probably, but she sold her car and everything, and she took her juicer and went to California, and she cured herself. She did not want to have surgery. And that was at her Chiron return, when sometimes an illness can be a catalyst for change. And she went out there and began to do her work, and then she had published her first book in the 70s. But this was, I believe, in the 80s when she, she was about 50, and she had her Chiron return. So, and then the rest is history, But she actually, around 58, she was broke for some reason, but that's when she started Hay House at that time.
Wow.
That's the thing. Jane Fonda has talked about in her book Primetime, which is a wonderful book about, her life, but it's also about the aging and the third act. And she said, she had been in theater for a long time, and she said, sometimes in the theater, a play, the first two acts, the play doesn't make sense. But you go out during intermission, you have a drink or something, you come back, and the third act is when the story comes together. So for many of us, I know this is true of myself, that the third act in life, late 50s, early 60s, is a time when our life comes together. Because there's certain things, many musicians or athletes have success early in life, but for many of us, sometimes we need more experience.
Actually, I'm going to bring up
right?
a name. George Foreman.
Oh, yeah, right.
Just so you know, I am email pen pals with him. You can email him on his website. It says very clearly, plain as day, if you email me, I will answer. Not my assistant, not somebody who works for me.
Okay.
Me. And I emailed him, and, it's a really weird story, because it's like, his story goes against everything involving boxing. I mean, you don't start fighting again at that age.
Right.
And nobody considers you the possibility of even being a contender, never mind being champion. And he did.
Wow. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, the thing I think I mentioned early on, but I'll just say it because it's important again, is that the thing that astrology has taught me is that we all bloom at a different time. And the mistake we make is, again, comparing our insides to someone's airbrushed outsides, we have to trust our process. Be patient with yourself. Don't quit before the miracle. Many a writer, many an artist, whatever, they started late or they started early, but it took more. If someone's going to be a great writer or great therapist, for instance, you need life experience. You can't just it's not that a musician, it's easy, but you do, or an athlete, you have to practice. But to be a writer, you need experience. You need to make mistakes, to fail, to grow, to, have breakdowns and breakthroughs. So, be patient with yourself. I know it's true for me. My life really came together in my 60s. I didn't publish my book till last year. I was 74. Who cares? This is my time. So, I wouldn't have thought that when I was younger,
Yeah.
But I understand now that we all have our own timing. And don't demonize it because, I haven't made it yet. So, many, many people make it late in life, You have, and that's fine. People get married early. Some people get married late in their 60s, 70s, Who cares? This is our life. Honor your life, and honor your path, however long it changes, and just hang in there. And another one of my favorite quotes is, "Even crawling will get you there," even crawling.
Yeah.
And so you got to hang on and have a good attitude, do the inner work. Don't be afraid of doing that work. And the inner work of forgiving, healing, facing your issues, taking responsibility, staying curious. Michelangelo said it supposedly at 82, "I'm still learning." That's the key.
Yeah.
Just keep learning and living. And again, don't quit before the miracle, as they say in AA.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And loving yourself and being happy. And I mean, I was never a happy person. But in my 60s, I really decided I'm just going to be happy, even if it's just a few minutes a day. That changes your cell tissue, changes the way you think, how you learn. Letting go of old grudges, being able to forgive. These are all things that are free, it doesn't cost, and it can't hurt. And in fact, it empowers you.
Yeah.
So that's my message, honey.
Wow, you are awesome.
And you're never too late to be who you might have been, said George Eliot. You're never too late. We can start at any time. That's the beauty with the right attitude. Don't beat yourself up because you're not there yet. Where's there? There is wherever you are,
Oh, yeah, and it's about enjoying the process and the journey, and not just looking at getting there.
That's exactly right, Kelly. It's enjoying the process. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I spent many, many years going through changes and processes and all that, and there were parts of it I absolutely hated. And I just wanted to jump to the final, product, but you can't do that.
Right.
It's kind of like in Return of the Jedi with Luke Skywalker, and he wants to just be like, well, I need to go help my friend, sorry, Yoda, and he's like, you're not done with your training yet,
Yeah, but, right, exactly.
You can't just jump in and be, a doctor if you haven't gone through all that medical school and all the experiences.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's hard to be patient with yourself sometimes, at least for me. But
it is. We have those inner critics, in our head that, beat us up, but we have to really trust your instincts. That's the key, I think.
Yeah. I took a meditation class, and Louise Hay was one of the people in Deepak Chopra. We had chopped with Carry Water, Deepak Chopra, chopped with Carry Water. But Louise Hay, she has an app, I believe, on Google Play, that you can get. And it must have been in her healing time in California, where it shows different illnesses that people can have and different ways to alter your way of thinking, alter your emotions related to it, and change your life so that you change your health.
Well,
absolutely, and she did that.
We have about 10 seconds left. But
okay.
I wanted to thank both of you for helping me out with the show, and thank you for coming on, Virginia Bell.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to both of you, really.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's been wonderful.